Hello there everyone, welcome to your guide to Lord Skrolk of the Skaven. As it is typical in these guides, I play through the initial turns and got a feel for the faction. I will show you my conclusions and in the end provide you some army compositions that I would try out in my campaigns. As always, this is not an in-depth guide, just what I would do before starting up a campaign. Without further, here we begin with Lord Skrolk. For your short victory conditions, you need to control the settlements of Itza, Hexotl, Laxtlan, and Schlanhuapek. I hope I didn't mispronounce that. Basically, a lot of lizardmen capitals located all over Lustria, so yeah, that's your main theme for the campaign. Get rid of the lizards. You also need to occupy Loot-Razor Sack 30 different settlements. Now, achieving this, the reward is +3 recruit rank for your units. It's decent, so that you can always benefit from better recruits as you proceed into longer victories. Now, in terms of the long campaign victory, you need to achieve the short victory condition, occupy Loot-Razor Sack 75 different settlements, and then to control at least 7 of these settlements, either by direct ownership or through vassals and military allies. The big problem is that nearly all of them are located in the Old World. Of course, some of them you can gain by allies, but it's still going to be a lengthy campaign. Especially the longer that you take, the longer the idea that it may not even be owned by someone who is friendly. So you only have access to really 2 in your location, one of which you already control. So yeah, this is a difficult campaign for sure. Now, the victory will reward you with global recruitment capacity +2. It would be decent, but it may already be too late to actually provide any good benefits to it. It is entirely possible that you even achieve domination campaign before reaching the long victory, given how far away everything is. Sure, via alliances is different, but it is not always easy to do that either. Now, Radiant Corruption is what gives Skrolk its benefits. He has 100% more chance for a plague to spread, and the plagues bolster your forces and nurture your settlements. Now, you also incur less construction costs for Pox Cauldron, Pestilent Nave, and Plague Bailey buildings, and the Pestilent Scheme Rite has -15 turns of cooldown. Overall, this is a set of buffs completely around the plagues, so guess what you should be doing? In terms of climate, it's one of the best, actually. It's really good. Almost everywhere it is pleasant, or at least unpleasant instead of uninhabitable. So uninhabitable is really just a few. Probably just, the main major location with uninhabitable is actually Ulthuan here and Aethelloran, and that's about it. So without so many penalties, it's a great faction to actually dominate the map with. Your starting province is a 3-settlement province, but its location is rather average, actually. You're in the middle, so you may suffer attacks from different sides. Typical expansion is probably to control the southern part of Lustria and then proceed to the north. However, whether or not you should diverge to the other side of the mountains remains to be seen. And that is up to you to check whether or not there is any threats there, or if you have an advantage, some hiccups that the enemy may have that will allow you to conquer it easily. Basically, I would always keep an eye, at least with a scout, to ensure that there's no surprises from that place. Now, typical enemies will be lizardmen, would be other Skaven, other Tomb Kings, for instance, Bretonnia Dwarves. There's several Chaos factions here as well, so be wary. Everyone will definitely be attacking you, so it is going to be a pain, but still, nothing that you can't handle as the Skaven. In terms of diplomacy, it's difficult for this specific Skaven faction. So although you're neutral, you will soon be facing most of the island alone, and most friendlies will be either other Skaven factions or maybe Nurgle, which has already been eliminated here in this playthrough. So maybe Vampire Coast. Maybe Vampire Coast, that would be a good idea for you to try, and try to obtain a good outpost with. So for that, I wouldn't recommend that you gain too many friendlies with the other Skaven factions. They're bound to be destroyed very soon. So instead, I would immediately try to find out the Vampire Coast, try to befriend them, make some deals with them, and maybe in the end you can benefit from their units, of course, as you can see here. I would take flying units, for instance, because it's something that the Skaven don't have, and certainly it could influence them a lot. And and it's quite easy for the AI to actually obtain those. So yeah, of course, nothing wrong with you getting some artillery from them or some single entities, but yeah, I would definitely go for the flyers. In terms of enemies, you'll have plenty: dwarfs, the lizard men, even Bretonia, even the Vampire Coast if you're not careful with that, these high elves, and then anyone that comes from the southern wastes. Yeah, you can see where it is going, but for the most part you'll be facing the Order, say Order Tide factions around the island. In terms of mechanics, let's talk about the Plague. So, for instance, as you can see here, I obtained the Skaven Plague and all those bonuses. Casualty replenishment rate, Frenzy ability, leadership. So that's really cool. Everyone suddenly gets Frenzy. Can you imagine that idea? Everyone gets Frenzy. These guys with Frenzy, as if they weren't frenzious enough, let's say. So, the other notion, of course, is that you get some more leadership, which is helpful versus everyone, because, you know, that's what you lack. Now, it also affects the settlements differently. More growth, less construction time, which is excellent, and more income from all buildings. That's why suddenly, you know, it's spiking up. So, yeah, it's definitely a good idea to always be spamming these plagues and try to ensure that, you know, there are plagues everywhere. So yeah, that would be a nice idea. Now, in terms of undercities, I do have one established here. Of course, basically these have different types of buildings that you can have. I'm not going to go through all of them, but one note that you need to have is the discoverability rating. Basically, if the Undercity is discovered, they can pay to destroy it, which is always a problem. So for the most part, you're going to use this for a lot of buffs, really. You know, like I'm doing here, for more research rate, for more hero capacity. You can also get, you know, just some more food and stuff like that. And this is more of just like the maintenance cost and discoverability reduction. But you can get some food generated, you know. That's a good generation of food, really. You can also get some income. You can also get some more income gained from the local settlements income, which is excellent, and some specific ones. So just put your mind to it and just check out which ones are available, risk it or not risk it in terms of discoverability, and that's about it. Now, let's talk about food. Food is your unique currency. You gain it mostly from battles, of course, from buildings as well. There's several ways of gaining it, several ways of consuming it, of course, as you can see. Now, these are more to prevent the debuffs, because the debuffs are really hampering you. But the buffs are not really that cool. It's good with the leadership. That leadership plus 10 makes a huge difference in Skaven armies, because they typically they will just run away. So if you can manage to have plentiful food, by all means. Now, food is also used for the menace below. So whenever you attack an enemy army, you can use up some food. I'll just demonstrate here and then flee. This is just for demonstration purposes, of course. So not a battle that I would take. Hey, I can get a Pyrrhic victory, so maybe I would. So I'll just continue the siege. But with this, you can increase the number of usage of the menace below, which summons a unit of clan brats anywhere where you wish, which is always welcome. It's always good. So yeah, and the menace below does you know, is welcoming because there are Skaven corruption. So yeah. Now let's continue the siege here. In terms of that Skaven corruption, like I mentioned, of course, it also implies that you can have more uses of menace below, but that you can have some uses of menace below, and it has some different stats there. As you can see, income from all buildings, but less control. So be wary of that. You know, the Skaven, of course, can get some issues with their own corruption because of control, but you can also offset that with buildings. So I guess it's fine. Another mechanic in itself is how the Skaven typically ambush when they actually attack. So a normal attack is actually an ambush, which is really great. That always encourages some good ambushing tactics, some different compositions, because you know that you, for the most part, you'll be ambushing if you attack. So yeah, it encourages you also to attack, which is excellent. In terms of the rights, let's go briefly through them. You do have the dominating scheme for food per turn, growth, control, recruitment cost, all good buffs. You do have the 13th scheme, so more diplomatic relations with Skaven, less issues with the loyalty, also that mechanic. loyalty mechanic is very straightforward. If it reaches 0, they will revolt. So make sure it doesn't. Hero action success chance, enemy hero action success chance decreased, and the army ability. This is different from Clan Moors in the effect that it is the Pestilence Clan Stone, so it imbues with poison allies in range. It's pretty cool. Also thematic, let's say. You also have the Pestilence Scheme, which has less 15 cooldown duration from the typical ones, which means that you'll be able to spread those plagues, like you've seen there, really easily. Basically, whenever you can, just use this one. It's really helpful. And then you have the Scheme of Doom. Unique Warlock Engineer hero capable of targeting the foreign settlement to either establish an under-city or cause a catastrophic earthquake. So basically, these are the rights that are available to you. A special note, of course, to that Plague one that takes only 15 turns. Very useful. In terms of army stances, they're quite good. You ambush while attacking, which is really great. It plays so well into the faction. You also have the opportunity to lay down in ambush, you know, to just remain hidden and waiting for them to fall down, or just to hide yourself from the enemy, which is always an excellent move. Now, this costs 25% movement range. Now, you also can raid for 50% movement range, and you do generate food, so it's one of the main sources of food is to have, you know, everyone just raiding all around. You also have encamp to enable this replenishment, access to the global recruitment pool, and immunity to most attrition, and winds of magic. Basically, I divert on this one. It's kind of moot, as probably the chance to ambush attack is typically better than the winds of magic. So, but perhaps on sieges, for instance, this could be an interesting one. Now, you also have one of the best tactical advantages, which is to use the underway. Of course, you can travel long distances. You may be intercepted, of course, but this always allows you to, for instance, go through stuff that typically you wouldn't be able to. So this is always an excellent way of traversing through difficult terrain, and in Lustria it will become invaluable. Now, in terms of province edicts, you do have the control plus corruption reduction. You also have recruitment cost and local recruitment capacity. You have Skaven corruption and food generation. And then you have a growth and construction cost reduction for all buildings. Now, the edict concerning corruption seems to be a little bit overlooked, but actually it's still not. This means that all other forms of corruption are diminished, so sometimes you don't want to increase your own. You want to reduce like corn or chaos corruption in your lands, so that's why it is effective there. In terms of buildings, let's start with the Undercities. Now, they have a unique requirement, which is discoverability, by the way. I already spoke about it in the mechanics, but just be sure that they are not easy to be discovered. Of course, pay attention to when it adds discoverability. To me, these ones should actually reduce discoverability, but I'm not CA. Now, you also have the Plague Cauldron Cradle, which is excellent. It will cause an unending plague if you manage to do that. It's a difficult one. And in addition, the Vermintide, which summons a Skaven army to try and take over the city, which is always excellent. You should try to do this, especially with a lot of Undercities. So suddenly they cannot spend all that money to destroy you. In addition, of course, you have several other buildings. Most of them these ones deal with try to avoid the discoverability. These about food, these about money, and these about mining. Basically, some research rate ones, some less upkeep there, as you can see. Always some income from trade tariffs, construction cost reduction for all buildings, etc. So basically, this is what you have to search in terms of all the buildings that you can build in your Undercities, of course. Now, Oixil does have a unique building here, actually two, you know, if you include the exotic animal market. But the landmark is basically a good building, a good income, food and growth, as well as income from all buildings. It's excellent to give him a bit of an edge in the early game and its early province. You have 6 military buildings, 5 of which must be built in the capital for the fullest effect. Now, they have good combos of units at tier 3, though. You have to include the storm vermin there. You also have to include the rattling guns, the poison wind global deers, even the plague cold catapults, the plague monks, the red ogres. You know, definitely good combinations that can be effective even at that point. Now, all buildings generate income. They also generate Skaven corruption, and most of them unlock specific technologies, so be wary of that. In terms of your infrastructure, you have a growth and casualty replenishment rate building. All of them, I won't mention that they do provide income in Skaven, all of them do. You have a food and income from all buildings building. You have a Skaven recruitment cost building and denial of any other corruption. As you can see, all other types of corruption -3. That's the importance of this one. And you also have a control, Lord recruit rank, hero recruit rank, and recruit rank for basically recruit rank for anyone here building. It's really cool. Now, speaking of the research, as we were saying before, it is really cool. It has upgrades for nearly every single unit, and it goes really far away without being, you know, too difficult to reach, you know. So basically, all of them, however, are under specific buildings that you need to build to unlock. So be sure to have those so that you don't have any issues really. You can see that it will require some specific technologies and all, but most of them, they're really cool. They will add some units to the Vermintide to the point that your Vermintide is really powerful. So yeah, that's something that you may consider as well. Always keep an eye on the research tree. It's really cool and assists you definitely well. As always, you have Lord-specific skills, the melee line or yellow line, also with the caster line. You also have the army or red line skill set, and the blue line or campaign. Now, Skrolk has some good campaign abilities, let's say, some decent ones, and some good battle abilities, including causing terror, some leadership aura size there, the pestilence, the aura of pestilence, and he also has the plague lords to further, you know, go into that. Everything that has a plague name there will be, you know, dedicated to them. So you have to include as well the plague lord there, more Skaven corruption, less upkeep for plague monks, sacrifices, embarrass, plague cock catapults, and plague priest units. So yep, that's his theme. Everything that is a plague something. Now they do have no replenishment on the blue line, by the way. They have less upkeep. Still plenty of bonuses for money, for looting settlements, for ambush success chance. I would go with this especially because it's so good at playing into the faction, you know. Red line allows some crazy good combinations. It's very interesting. It's definitely one of the most interesting rosters for that. They have quite cheap combinations too, so it allows you to spend skill points in other areas very easily. Now, finally, in terms of lords, heroes, let me just show you something here. Actually, not here. There we go. You have tons of heroes. You have the chieftain, you have the assassin, which replenishes troops. You have the Eshin sorcerer, which, you know, it's a different theme, basically. You have also the warlock engineer, better for weapons themes. You have the plague priest as well, which is, you know, adds into the theme here. And you still have the packmaster, which replenishes troops as well. So basically, you have several choices in terms of the heroes. By all means, try them all out. Some of them also have specific buffs. For instance, assassins buff night runners and gutter runners. Warlocks buff weapons teams. That's mostly speaking in terms of the lords. Grey seers are just generalized great because they are, you know, caster ones. And the warlords also have a specific ability. Let me show you a specific skill that allows you to get income from settlement buildings faction wide. So if you have all of these in the growth as well. So if you have several of these ones with the Ravenous expansion, you can imagine where it goes. You know, you'll get plenty of income everywhere. Now here are the red line skills for the Skaven. So the second line mixes them all up a bit. So be sure to maximize, to be on the lookout for that, to maximize your armies, you know. In general, we have specific ones for like the weapons themes, the other missile units, most elite infantry here, monsters, and artillery, as well as the chariots here, basically. Now, you do have several options. The clan rats one, of course, I would prefer for them to have maybe the storm vermin to allow a different take, you know, so that you could buff the clan rats early on, but you can't have everything. Now, in terms of Lord Skrolk, basically what he does is reducing upkeep. You know, you have better ranks, but it's up to it, you know. So what I would definitely try is to use some plague sensor bearers there, some halberds just for any anti-large that tries to sneak past, and to try to hit your weapon steams and plague arc catapults, of course. You can also do the same thing with the monster line, and you can notice how effective these are in terms of red line skills. This is more of a different take, you know, just pepper them down with missiles and have these units, the night runners, just to try and go against enemy artillery, for instance, to pick their targets because they can be concealed, etc. This sort of idea, that's what I would try with Lord Skrolk here. Now, nothing wrong with you with some basic weapon steams, of course, the compositions. These are just warp grinders to hold anyone that passes through the immense firepower of this army, but it always lacks a line of sight, so be wary. You know, it not always lacks, but it may lack a line of sight, so be wary of that. This is more of a generalized army that I use throughout some of my campaigns. You know, pretty good against everything, good against settlements as well, because you do have still the storm vermin to invade the settlements if you need to assault. So yeah, that's the sort of idea here. Don't neglect that they do have some reduced upkeep for most of the weapon steams, so that's why they're there. Now the assassin ones change so much, and this is what I love. They remind me of the vampire counts. They actually have completely different sets of armies possible just because of what they actually buff up. As you can see, the assassins here would improve the missile strength for night runners, getter runners. They do give them the concealment bombs. So guess what this army is all about? No one is visible. Everyone has stock, or can have that, which is great. Can you imagine this is an ambush army? All that they will see, I think, it's the chieftain. Especially in multiplayer, this should be so fun to use. Maybe you'll die. It doesn't matter. You'll have so much fun with that. Now, this is more of a, let's say, getter runners with some plague monks and some monster units. But yeah, all those sort of possibilities are, you know, are very good, very good. And this is a more generalized take on the faction. Some infantry units with some missile troops, of course, some weapon steams, they're always good. Some monsters here. In this case, I'll just reduce the infantry units and then instead use a little bit more monsters. Over here, I just completely overgo any infantry, just monsters and weapon steams. And the same thing here, but just instead of using some artillery, just some chariot units, just some doom wheels to have some fun with. Probably a good army to ambush, like these two armies should ambush really well. So always play into that theme as well, you know, always play into the ambushing theme. I have said before that Skaven are one, if not the faction that everyone dismisses until they play them. Skrolk himself has a difficult start position, but it is also nice because no one else is really facing lizards so frequently, you know, and that's always a nice take. When it is varied, that's what I like. Now, there's an amazing replay value, great mechanics that just give you the feel of being in control of a swarm of rats that wrecks everything in their path and poisons everything. They have a variety of playing styles like you've seen, but with Skrolk, do try to maximize their plague monks, their plague claw catapults. Use that up, become the Lord of Pestilence throughout the Warhammer world. You know, nothing wrong with variety though, of course, by all means, but try to do that theme really well. For the army, it consists of good infantry, great missile infantry and artillery, good monstrous infantry in single entities, great heroes and very varied. I love this. No flying units and no real cavalry. You have some doggos, but that's about it. Replenishment is great, especially considering the climate. You probably will recover your army to full in no time. I believe now it is time, yes, to poison the world with Mrs. Skrolk.